Fast food jobs are interesting, to say the least. Working in service isn't the best, but it gets you enough money to get by. I worked in fast food for a little over 6 months, and in this video I'll be explaining my experiences in the field and how I ended up getting fired. My first real job, because we don't count the 3 days I spent working at Suabue, was at a Sonic about 10 minutes away from my house, which was pretty convenient. I was looking for a job to get enough money to buy the things I wanted, like a car and food, and since they were hiring, I figured, why not? For some reason, they only use paper applications, so I got to go inside the store and fill one out. A little while later, I had an interview with the general manager, we'll call her Helen, who asked me a few questions and looked at my application. She said, "So, I believe in giving everyone a chance. We can start you out on Fountain at $9 an hour." And just like that, I had a job, I guess. $9 an hour wasn't the best, but I was sure I'd get a raise eventually. The fountain position, if you didn't know, is where you make the drinks. So it was pretty easy to pick up. Drinks were easy enough, you just pour them into the cup and refill the syrup when it gets low. Slushes were pretty similar, but you'd put the syrup in first, and then the slush mix from the slush mix machine. I don't really know what it was called. Ice cream was a little more complicated. We had shakes and blasts, as well as just plain old soft serve ice cream cones. Shakes were relatively quick. You just pour in the ice cream and then mix it up in the shake machine, and then add the candy and flavor. Blasts were a little more annoying because you had to put soft serve in first, then mix it up with flavor in the candy. Also, to this day, I still cannot make a consistent ice cream cone. Most of the job was pretty easy after a couple of weeks, though, and I worked on Fountain for the full 6 months I was at that store. They never decided to teach me car hops, and I didn't really feel like working at the kitchen, so I just made drinks for 6 months. It wasn't bad, though. Fountain was the quicker of the two positions, so I usually had less work in the kitchen. Sometimes I got drink-only orders, though, because let's face it, most people don't go to Sonic for the food. I was able to make myself a drink or slush whenever I wanted, and occasionally I'd just get an ice cream because I wanted to. We had like a food tax thing taken out of our pay of like $4 a day, which I think is kind of cringe because like if we're doing the job for barely enough money to get by, the least you can do is give us some free food, right? This was actually around when I started getting indigestion because of how much of Sonic food I was eating. It never went away. Later on, they actually did limit us to like one full meal from the kitchen per day, which was even more annoying. Kinda glad I left that job, actually. I also want to talk about some of my coworkers, because as you can probably infer, some of the people who worked at Sonic were interesting, you could say. First, there was a general manager, Helen, not her real name as previously stated. She was alright, kind of strict and impatient sometimes, but she was pretty chill usually. There were a few more managers, but I only really know 2 of them pretty well. We'll call them Carla and May. Carla was older than most of the other people who worked there, maybe in like her early 30s, around there. She was pretty cool and we were mutual second favorites. May was younger and she was alright too, but I never really got to know her as much. Also, she vaped. Actually, a lot of the people there did. Probably shouldn't be surprising, but like half the people who worked at Sonic vaped. Never really upfront or where there were customers there, but working exclusively as a drive-in was a pretty good excuse to vape at work. Speaking of customers, I never really had to deal with them. I just made the drinks, so I never had to hear, "Let me speak to your manager," or "Do you know who I am?" None of that. There were some more interesting people involved in this job, though, and those were some more of the people I worked with. There was this one guy, let's call him Rick, who worked on Car Hop and Fountain and pretty much just did whatever. He was one of my favorite people there, and we were buddies. One time we were working late, so there weren't a lot of customers, and he actually brought his bird up to the store from his house, which was pretty close. The manager up there at the time didn't really like it, but she let him keep it up there for a bit before making him take it home. Its wings were clipped, I'm pretty sure, so it couldn't really like get around, but it was interesting having a bird in the Sonic. A couple of people worked in the Fountain with me, starting with a girl we'll call Jessie. She pretty much trained me for my first couple days, and as far as I know, still works there. The last I heard, she was training to be a manager. She and I were never really close at all, but she was alright, and she was really good at her job. There was also this guy on Fountain who was there the first like month or 2 that I worked there, and we'll call him Joel. Joel was pretty cool and taught me a lot about the position too. He moved away a little after I started, but he was pretty chill while he was there. A lot of the guys who worked in the kitchen were also pretty cool. They were nice and pretty funny. Honestly, I feel like the guys who worked in the kitchen were the coolest people there. No offense to any of the other Sonic employees if you managed to find this video. Also, hi. I actually have a few stories of some fun and not so fun stuff that happened at that store. Like that one time, the computer caught on fire. So in the store, we had these little screens, right, that you would take the orders on. And one time while we were working at night, the wires like under the computer kind of caught on fire. I don't really understand how to this day, but I think it must have been like some kind of damage to the wires that let heat build up there and catch on fire. We all kind of freaked out for a second, but then one of the cooks grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall. We'll call him Jay. He was actually May's brother. And then he actually used the fire extinguisher, which was the one time I ever saw that thing get used at that Sonic. We had to stand outside the store for a bit so we wouldn't inhale the fumes, and the manager who was working there at the time called the tech people, and I wasn't there when they ended up coming, but it was still a really interesting experience. Another time we actually had scheduled maintenance where we had to close the store for an hour or so. Around this time, a guy was coming in to, actually I don't really know what he was doing, but he needed the power off. So we just kind of vibed. I did my chores, which actually I haven't really talked about my chores much. Maybe I should mention that. Found chores were mostly pretty easy, just stuff like restocking the fridge and changing the slush syrup. The slush syrup came in like those little bottles so that you can like squirt. And we had like a little fridge up front that you could put all the little things that needed to be refrigerated in. There were big boxes of syrup for like the drinks, because if you've ever like used a soft soda machine, you click it and like the soda water comes out with the syrup, and we had to replace those quite a bit. The boxes were really heavy and it was kind of annoying to change them, but I got by. Refilling the ice cream in the machines was really annoying too, because the boxes were really heavy because they were these like big bags of ice cream mix inside. And then we had to like hold the big bags and then like take the cap off, which it didn't like unscrew. You had to like pull it off, and then you had to like pour it in there. And that was really annoying because if you spilled it, then it got everywhere and you had to clean it up. The guys in the kitchen always had a Bluetooth speaker back by the sink, and they'd play their music on when the radio wasn't on. The first like few months I was working there, they had like the Sonic radio network playing. Like if you've ever gone up to a Sonic that's out on the patio and heard like music playing, or this is Sonic radio, then that was also going on inside the store. It ended up breaking a few months into me working there, and eventually they brought up a Bluetooth speaker and that just kind of stayed. I didn't really mind either of them. It was nice having some background noise, and heck, I sometimes even just brought up my own earbuds. But one time I actually got Jay to play Seabat over the Bluetooth speaker, which was pretty funny back when Seabat was like a thing. One of the annoying things about me working there was that I couldn't drive yet, so I had to wait for either my mom or my dad to pick me up. This would have been fine, but like a third of the time when I was working late, my dad was late to pick me up, which was not great, because sitting there with my phone locked, waiting for my dad to pick me up with ADHD out in the night on a Sonic patio doing nothing, it's very enjoyable. Thank you, Dad, for picking me up anyway. And then here's the part of the video you've all been waiting for. How I got fired from Sonic. It wasn't anything like big or disastrous, just like a scheduling issue. I didn't blow up a machine or, I don't know, light a computer on fire. But I was in the middle of marching band season at the time, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and the thing that did it was actually Junior Senior Honor Band. I'd forgotten to request off for that day, and I was the only trumpet player from my school going, because Junior Senior Honor Band, if you don't know, is kind of just like a collection of a bunch of students, like the best students from each school in the area, going together and making music, and it was really cool. And I was the only trumpet player from my school going, which meant I kind of had to go, and I'd forgotten to request off for that day. So yeah, at that point, I'd had way too many schedule changes. Also, props to my manager for putting up with me for that long, because man, I was not on top of requesting off, and she couldn't really keep me on anymore. That was a few months ago, and I've had enough money to keep me afloat, just like buy some food, pay off my car for a while, but I'm running out now between all those things, and I'm looking for a new job. It's surprisingly tough for some reason, which is weird, because apparently it's supposed to be like really easy to find a job these days, but I'll find some place, and after I'm done there, I'm sure I'll have more stories to tell you guys, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. This was a pretty fun video, with a bunch of disconnected rambles and anecdotes, and I really loved sharing my experiences working at Sonic with you guys. If you enjoyed this video, as well as subscribing and ringing that bell if you don't want to miss any future episodes, make sure to leave a like down below to let me know you liked this video. Make sure to comment down below too if you have any other work stories you would like to share with me, or want to hear any other kind of stories from me. This isn't really the type of content I usually make, but it was pretty interesting, and it's helping me practice my commentary skills. Anyway, this has been a fun little tangent, but I'm done now. So until next time, this is Shoot Kapow. Over and out.